Dig this, Daddy-O. This hep cat is on his way to Sing Sing. But he ain't about to do no opera. It's the big house, baby. And he's on a mission from God to axe this one square, or his little flower is on the line. But he's not even sure the bud came from his garden, you dig? But with the help from a groovy professor, he's about to ride the ultimate wave, man. I am genuinely sorry about that. We watched Skidoo today on...
The f*** is this? Syphilis. Check 1, 2. Test.
It's not syphilis.
It's not?
It's semblance.
Oh, semblance.
Which is, I don't know what that word means, but, I know it's not syphilis.
One time I was at a concert, and, the guy who was doing the sound check was like, test 1, 2. Syphilis.
Did he look like a guy who has syphilis?
Yeah,
Maybe
he
was
most
just
likely.
confessing
It was
to the
on his
crowd.
mind, yeah. It was the rickshaw.
He just got his diagnosis.
Yeah.
That's all he's thinking about.
I gotta tell the world.
He was just...
Anyone who will listen.
He's too broke to take the day off work, though. He can't process it, so he has to process it in front of the crowd.
Exactly.
Yeah,
This is his
so
group
that's what's
therapy.
happening.
He was warning the groupies ahead of time. Yeah.
Is this the intro now?
I guess this is now the intro. Well, I was going to say I was going to attempt to do something a little more classy. I was going to start off the episode by saying, Groucho Marx was famed for saying that he would never belong to a club that would have him as a member. And I relate to that quite a bit because, frankly, I would never listen to a podcast that had me as the host. And speaking of which, welcome back, however you wish to self-identify, to The Fuck Is This, where we dive through DVD bins, sort through streaming apps to find the weird, the bizarre, and the unloved. It's the podcast hosted by two guys who host a podcast. That was my cat trying to get out the door. I'm Kaz Lesgard.
I'm right there with you, Kat. Holy shit, Kaz. Are you trying to drive people away these days?
Planning his escape is Jameson Rafter. Would you knock that shit off? Come here.
That's the cat again. It's
My
not me.
third guest this episode is my cat buddy, who's gonna be a fucking asshole. This is a real self-fulfilling prophecy, because when we were hanging out the other day, you were saying, the cat should be part of the podcast more. The cat doesn't, interact with the podcast all that often. I've referenced him 2 minutes into the fucking podcast, and he's trying to tear shit down.
Yeah, also we delayed recording it because he was too busy trying to use the litter box.
Yes. I think 2 episodes ago, we actually kept the audio of him using the litter box in the episode, just because we wanted to get that guerrilla podcasting thing. This is real life, people.
You really want people to know that this is your basement apartment and not a recording studio.
Brett, I must say, the last time we had you on the show, we were doing shows out of Kaz's basement. I swear to God, we did have a stint in a proper recording studio.
We were doing
We
better
have
for a
evolved
while.
since you last been on the show.
I don't hear any of the evidence.
No, the evidence is, since the last time you were here. Our guest today, by the way, is Brett Willis, who past guest, one of our earliest guests, I believe, the last time we had you here.
The earliest?
Yeah, roughly around there. I think that was episode 11. Last time he was here, we of course were talking about the Flight of Dragons, which
Wonderful
is
movie from my childhood. Taught me so much.
Yes.
So much about the world of dragons.
No, but there is
Science.
no, but Brett, there is a noticeable difference from the last time you were here. The last time you were here, I had wall-to-wall carpeting, and now I've replaced it with hardwood flooring, which means that the sound quality is significantly worse from the last time that you were here. So, changes.
Yeah, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back.
Indeed.
You're doing well. You're doing well.
Yeah. Speaking of doing well, how you been doing? How's that for a transition?
I mean,
aren't I so much better at this?
How is everybody doing? I'm pretty much doing the same as everybody else, which it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice to know that we're all now part of this.
Sure.
So we all hate each other equally.
Yeah, we all have the same shared collective trauma that we can't explain yet and will manifest in ways that none of us have any source material for. And I'm realizing now what a mistake it was to put all of the empty cardboard boxes around the recording area, because he just wants to get into them.
Never mind that they're full of magazines.
This was all part of our effort to soundproof the room a little bit better, but no, the cat had other ideas.
Well, yeah, because you think cardboard boxes everywhere. Hey, maybe that will decrease the sound quality a little bit, but
that's not going to entice a cat at all.
No, the cat's I want to get in this shit. All right, so if at any point in time you hear a deafening crash in the background, that's him doing his thing. There he is. There he goes. He's having fun. Anyway, today on the show...
That makes one person, at least.
We're going to have some fun. We're all going to have some fun here. So today on the show, we're going the oldest that we ever have. We're continuing our trend where we're talking about movies that we truly have no business talking about. Our last episode, we were discussing Kung Fu Chefs, and we were talking... There it is! There he goes! Get out of here, man! God damn. This is what you love. This is why you tune in every week, because you want to hear like this real guerrilla podcasting. Anyway, yes, so we're definitely experts on the subject of Chinese and Hong Kong cinema, which is why, of course, we watched a movie from that era. In this episode, we're talking about something we're also qualified for talking about, which is movies that came out before we were born. This is the old...
Like 30 years before any of us were born.
Yes, this is the oldest movie we've done on the podcast. This is 1968's Skidoo, directed by Otto Preminger. Now, before we get into this, Brett, you're one of the people that I enjoy talking about movies the most with. We tend to kind of like skew a little closer to, you know, the nerd stuff, the common day nerd stuff, you know, your Marvel.
Just so much
your
of
Marvels,
it.
your Star Warses, and what is your relation to, for lack of a better term, classic cinema? What would you say is the oldest movie that you've watched in recent memory?
In recent memory, the oldest movie I've probably watched was The General.
That's quite fucking old!
Yeah, so there was... In my hometown, there was a theater, and when they completely renovated it because it turned into a heritage site, and they ended up having these nights where they would have live orchestra playing along with silent movies.
Great.
Cool.
And they had replaced like a bunch of their theater seats with couch cushions. Like a lot of them found like they were out of the dumpster. It was a costly renovation. They had to cut some measures somewhere.
An evening at the symphony.
That's real garbage cinema right there.
They had seen also Nosferatu. They did one for that.
Sorry, like the concessions were like a can of beans, and, like
just real Depression era. Like they really want you to feel like
yeah,
you're
they
back
wanted
in
to
that
like
time.
sink it in.
Cats fucking around in the background.
The screening was interrupted by a bunch of Keystone cops coming in and chasing everyone out of the theater.
Yeah. But I also had a lot of... My dad had a collection of classic comedy bits on the old VHS tape, old like double VHS tape boxes. So old Laurel and Hardy's, old Three Stooges, a couple of Groucho Marx movies that I didn't like as much as I liked the Three Stooges ones because I was 6. And people hitting each other is always funny.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. No, my dad was a big Three Stooges guy, so I grew up on that stuff. Not so much the Marx Brothers. I came to the Marx Brothers a lot later in life. But, you know, when comedy's great...
It transcends time.
It transcends time. Like,
Yeah.
I was looking up Groucho Marx quotes earlier today, and holy shit, some of these are so funny. Outside of a dog, a book is a man's best friend. Inside of a dog, it's too dark to read.
I shot an elephant in my pajamas. How he got in my pajamas, I have no idea.
Those are my principles, and if you don't like them, well, I have others. Like, it's good, like, good, funny writing, and, you know, like, if comedy's great, it doesn't matter, like, how old it is. I remember last year, I watched, Christ, what Chaplin movie was that? Modern Times.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a scene early on in that where they're testing out, like, this automatic corn on the cob machine, and they, like, strap Chaplin into it, and they put, like, a corn on the cob in front of him, and he can't get out, and it's going faster and faster. I laughed harder at that than I had at any studio comedy from the last 10 years. That was just fucking priceless, just him eating that fucking corn.
I think that one of the testaments to a lot of these old comedy bits is realizing how much of like Groucho Marx's comedy that I know, not because I've watched him, but because I've seen it referenced in so many things and so often. Like one of the biggest sources for Groucho Marx for me was watching MASH, which is another show that was before my time, because Hawkeye does Groucho Marx bits all the time in there. So this is a show in 50 years later than some of the Groucho Marx stuff, and it's still being done for laughs there.
Yeah,
like, and it's references on like Simpsons and all these animated shows. It's just
you know, like
something that's
Animaniacs, the genie from Aladdin, like it seeps its way into pop culture.
And I think because of that, my dad like went out of his way to show me like Duck Soup at one point, because like Groucho Marx keeps like getting brought up in all these like animated shows that my son watches. He should probably know like where the source material comes from. I grew up watching a lot of 60s ensemble comedies and like comedy that made my parents laugh when they were kids. So I guess in that sense, like my sense of humor, at least when I write, is like one foot in like the very, very old school. For example, like one of the cast members in this, Ralph Crandon himself, Jackie Gleason.
Jackie Gleason, the star of this movie.
Yeah, my mother had like this VHS box set of all the Honeymooners episodes. And, you know, that's how I got to know fucking Jackie Gleason.
Jackie Gleason, we're going to transition into talking about this movie in a second here, but just last night when I was doing my cursory 2 minutes of research on this, you know, I went on everyone's Wikipedia page and I read more about Jackie Gleason. Of course, Jackie Gleason, you know, he was a TV star first and foremost. There was the Honeymooners. He also had the Jackie Gleason Show. He also cut a bunch of jazz standard albums. How many albums do you guys think Jackie Gleason released in his lifetime?
I'm going to say 15.
Oh, okay. I'll say 10.
Cool. The correct answer is 58!
Whoa! See, I was gonna say 50, but I was like, that seems a little too much. But, fuck, I guess he was, like, show business royalty back in the day.
He was just like a crooner, I guess. He just like, put these things out. He would have loved Spotify. He'd be releasing playlists every week, probably.
Jackie Chan does the same thing. He's got, like, a bunch of studio albums. He's a big-time singer in China.
That fucking blew my mind when I found that out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He does the Mandarin version of I'll Make a Man Out of You from Mulan.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he sings like the official Disney licensed version of that song.
Is he also the voice of the character, or is he just the singing voice of the character?
I don't think he's in the movie. I think he has nothing to do with the movie.
They just brought him in to cut the track?
Because he's such a popular singer in China.
I think it's funny how in Mulan, it's B.D. Wong, but then the singing voice is Donny Osmond. So for the Mandarin one, they should have gotten Jackie Chan to do it, but then hired like a white person to do like a bad Mandarin accent. Anyway, Skidoo!
Is it Skidoo or is it like Skidoo?
It's not a movie about snowmobiles. I'm sorry. You gotta throw out all of your notes. It's kind of like a Rosetta Stone of weird fucking movies. I remember in my youth, you know, I got my first book. Here's like all of like these like weird, terrible movies from over the years, and I remember Skidoo was one of the oldest ones in the book. So I remember reading about this movie years earlier before I finally got around to watching it. This is one of the, probably not the oldest, again, like we do zero research here, but this is definitely like an example of like one of the oldest weird fucking movies to come out. But you know, it came out in an age long before the concept of home video was a thing. So like this was just like a weird movie that people went to the movie theater to see. Afterwards was all like, the fuck was going on with this?
Never expecting it to like...
And then just like faded from public consciousness until like years later people started writing about it, and then now it's definitely got like a little bit of like a cult fandom behind it here. Yeah, it's fucking weird and wacky, and I'm excited to show it to you guys. So, do either of you know who Otto Preminger is?
No idea.
Not a clue.
He's one of those directors who definitely has a fairly iconic filmography. Of course, you know, fans of classic movies are screaming at the podcast now, like, you Philistines! Otto Preminger, he's an iconic Hungarian film and theater director. He was known for helming projects that pushed the boundaries of censorship and taboo subjects of the 50s and the 60s.
Oh, great.
A small sampling of his over 35 filmography includes such classics as 1944's Laura, which is a benchmark of the film noir genre, starring Gene Tierney, Dana Andrews, and a young Vincent Price. 1954's Carmen Jones, which starred Harry Belafonte and Dorothy Dandridge, who was the first black woman to be nominated for Best Actress at the Academy Awards. 1955's The Man with the Golden Arm, a classic Frank Sinatra drama and one of the first films to depict heroin addiction. 1959's Anatomy of a Murder, a Jimmy Stewart legal thriller, which was one of the first films to use words like contraceptive, sexual climax, and sperm. So, you know,
shut your filthy mouth, cats.
Yeah, an example
My
of how
stars.
an example of how far censorship has come over the years. Yes, that was quite shocking. They wanted those words removed from the movie, and Otto Preminger said 9. He's Hungarian. I don't know why I did that. Sorry, Otto.
If you had taken, like, how different would that movie be if you couldn't say sperm and contraceptive? Like,
yeah, is
what
it
would they
key
use
to the movie? Like, is that the
Anatomy of a Murder? Well, Anatomy of a Murder. You know, obviously it's about a murder, but I also reading the synopsis about it. I know a fairly major subplot of that movie is the frank and open discussion of the rape of a woman, which again was very taboo at the time, and they didn't even want the word rape in the movie, but Otto Preminger was all like, this is like a legal thriller, we have to have these words in here.
Yeah.
What else do we call it?
Other taboos that he broke were in 1962's Advise and Consent, which was a political drama that was the first American film following World War II to depict a gay bar, which makes me wonder how many pre-World War II movies about gay bars there were, and is there a list, and can I watch all of them? Because that interests me. The movie was written by Doran William Cannon, who would go on to write Robert Altman's cult comedy Brewster McCloud, That's another weird fucking movie. It's about a young man who wants to fly, so he makes himself a pair of wings. It's another trippy 70s comedy there. The film also had several uncredited punch-up screenwriters, including a young Rob Reiner, who reportedly said Otto Preminger hired and then fired him every day. Two things that I learned about Otto Preminger when doing my research on this. One, he liked to break boundaries and push taboos and all that. Two, he was apparently a real son of a bitch. He was a big bully, reportedly.
So he would, like, break contract and push buttons.
Yes, and also he just pushed his actors around. Both Laurence Olivier and Adam West have claimed that he was a huge bully on the sets, and apparently he also browbeat Groucho Marx on the set of this movie, which caused Jackie Gleason to step in and step between them and go, bam, zoom, straight to the moon, Otto!
One of these days, Otto! You know what? Like, from what I understand of Jackie Gleason, he was an absolute perfectionist and an absolute bear to work for on the set of Honeymooners. Because, like, you can imagine Ralph Cranston being like that, you know, threatening, abusive kind of guy. Allegedly, he wasn't that much different to his co-stars.
I wouldn't want to get Jackie Gleason mad at me. He was a mountain of a man. I'm sure we wouldn't want that at all.
His most long-standing joke is about beating somebody into submission. Yeah, I don't want to be on his bad side.
Not just anyone, literally his wife.
Yes.
The cast for this movie, as we have mentioned before, include the great Jackie Gleason, Groucho Marx in his final role as the role of God. I'm not gonna go into everyone because there's so many people in this movie. I'll bring it up like after the fact. I'll like point them out at the time. But some other people in this movie include Broadway legend Carol Channing, teen heartthrob and star of the Beach Party series Frankie Avalon, the Rat Pack's Peter Lawford, Dr. Strangelove scene stealer Slim Pickens, future James Bond bad guy Richard Keel, Frank Gorshin, Burgess Meredith, Cesar Romero. Hey, wait a second.
Batman villains.
Something about those last three names altogether reminds me of something. And of course, Mickey Rooney playing a character named Blue Chips Packard, which sounds like a very prototypical Mickey Rooney character name.
Yeah.
Yes, no, to go off of what we were just talking about, the three Batman villain, I realized there was actually a fourth Batman connection that I didn't realize before. This is actually a reunion of 4 Batman villains. There were 3 actors over the course of that series to play the character of Mr. Freeze. The first one was George Sanders, who, among other things, also was the voice of Shere Khan from The Jungle Book.
Okay.
The third actor was Eli Wallach from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. The second actor was Otto Preminger. In one of his rare acting roles. He was on 2 episodes of Batman as Mr. Freeze.
Man, do you think he read one of the scripts for those? Like, I know how to beat people into submission with this role.
This seems like a scheme that these Gotham knaves would put together to, like, defeat the Dark Knight once and for all. They're gonna film a movie and cast themselves in
Honestly, like a swinging 60s movie about drugs and free love. I'm genuinely surprised Adam West isn't in this movie. But again, as I was saying, according to Wikipedia, apparently Otto Preminger and Adam West did not get along. Reportedly, there was a moment on set where Otto was lying on the ground because I guess they had defeated Mr. Freeze. And
he bonked him in the head.
And in between takes, Adam West came over and offered a hand to lift him up, and Otto Preminger apparently went like, "Get that shit away from me!" And it was just like very fucking rude.
He just didn't know that they stopped filming. He just thought it would kept going.
Use it, roll it.
All right, well, yeah, that's all I really wanted to say about Skidoo. I just wanted to add a little color to this, so we'll take a break and we'll go watch the movie, and then we'll tell you what happens after the fact. Don't want to get too much into the plot of this, because it really is one of those great movies that you just kind of want to unfold in front of you. The 2 things that I will say ahead of time before we watch this movie, the first thing I'll add some clarification, because without it does make the opening 10 minutes of the movie kind of confusing. So the first thing that I will say, it's important to remember, is that Jackie Gleason is playing a gangster in this movie. Remember that, because they don't actually explain that until about 12 minutes in. It's a little confusing. The other thing I will say is that this movie is about an hour and 40, and we have to watch all of it, all the way to the end, not because that there is an end credit scene, but because this movie, and I know I use hyperbole on this show a lot, I am absolutely, truthfully honest when I'm saying that this movie has the best ending credits of any movie I've ever seen in my life. And I'll just leave you guys with that, and we'll see you after this break.
Stay tuned, everyone.
The quarantine and lockdown efforts from the COVID-19 pandemic have been difficult challenges for us all. But can you imagine for a moment how you would feel if, just as events seem to be taking a turn for the better, with a possible end in sight, you, your loved ones, and your entire community were forced to evacuate from your homes, unsure of when or even if you could ever return? That has been the shocking reality of countless British Columbians who have had to uproot their lives in the encroaching dangers of regional forest fires in the BC interior. Whether natural or man-made, forest fires are a tragic, almost inevitable yearly occurrence here in BC. But between the shutting down of the Coquihalla Highway, hazardous air quality warnings throughout the Okanagan, and the heartbreaking, complete devastation of the town of Lytton, this year seems worse than ever. If you're like me, you have family and friends who live in and around Penticton and Kelowna, whose lives and livelihood are at constant risk of being completely taken away, and at present, they're the lucky ones. Beyond our efforts for prevention, there's very little we as individuals can do to combat the hundreds of forest fires currently rampaging throughout the province. What we can do is offer financial aid in these trying times. So for today's charities, I'd like to spotlight organizations offering forest fire relief funds. United Way to British Columbia, who offer critical relief and recovery efforts in the aftermath of devastating BC wildfires, offer assistance to those who were displaced or lost housing, belongings, or employment, and who have suffered physical or mental health trauma. And also, the Red Cross of Canada, who offer immediate and ongoing relief efforts, long-term recovery, resiliency, and preparedness for future events in British Columbia. And to note, until December 31st, all donations to the 2021 British Columbia Fires Appeal will be matched by the provincial government of British Columbia. To make a donation to these organizations, please visit donate.uwbc.ca/wildfires and donate.redcross.ca/85877/donate. Again, those links are donate.uwbc.ca/wildfires and donate.redcross.ca/page/85877/donate.
Jackie Gleason was Tony Banks, Carol Channing Flo, Frankie Avalon and G, Fred Clark, a tower guard, Michael Constantine Leach, Frank Gorshin, the man, John Phillips.
This is a podcast called The Fuck Is This? It's hosted by Cass Lescard. The other host is Jameson Rafter. The guest on this episode is Brett Willis, and that's all the people involved in this. So, hope you like my song.
Fitting.
I don't know.
Very fitting.
I don't know. You come up with a way back next time. I don't
Of course.
know. Whatever.
Well, no, you had all this prep time to come up with a song.
Yeah, clearly. I clearly planned it so well. I clearly thought about this ahead of time.
I feel like you accidentally nailed the exact melody of the
Yeah, well,
song in the first place.
because it's still in my head right now, because we literally just watched it. Yeah. So what is Skidoo, gentlemen?
Well, I don't know what Skidoo is, but this is definitely a movie that happens in 1968.
Yes.
Yeah.
It couldn't exist in any other time other than right at the end of the 60s, right when the whole hippie boom, LSD free love thing was...
So, my question is...
Yes.
Is this movie pro-hippie or anti-hippie? Because it's kind of hard to tell.
My 2 cents, I think it's meant to be pro-hippie, but it certainly does not come off that way. I think by the end of it, I wanted to get as far away from the free love movement as humanly possible.
The whole time, every time I saw scenes with the hippies, I just think, how many of these guys just end up being lawyers?
Sure.
Need a real job.
Like, there were so many hippies, not all of them could have been actors. They must have just grabbed people off the street.
Some of them I'm not even sure were completely hippies. There was a lot of old men in those hippie communes. Or they just needed some extras.
They probably just grabbed some people off the crew and just put them in a weird hat. And said, okay, here you go. But, so as weird as the hippies were, none of them were as weird as Carol Channing's wardrobe.
Oh boy.
Okay, are we gonna start? Let's start start this off right by immediately segging right into Carol Channing. There's so much to say about this lady, and look, I don't want to be mean at all. I'm sure Carol Channing, lovely person. She had many people who cared about her. She had friends and family. I'm sure she was absolutely delightful. You cannot convince me that Carol Channing is not a horrifying wooden marionette that has been brought to life by some evil magic. She is a terrifying looking woman. And she is she's very scary in this. And I don't feel like that's the intent.
That's your main takeaway of Carol Channing in this movie?
She's very unnerving when she's not.
She's unnerving.
When she's
but
not.
not because she's scary looking. Her behavior is really fucking off-putting in this movie.
If you were in a room with Carol Channing, you would not feel safe.
Yeah, because you have no idea what she's going to do.
She does a lot of flailing.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I feel like it's just one of those moments where this is a performer and the director is just gonna be like, hey, you know what? We're shooting this scene today. We don't know how it's gonna go. There is a script, but we don't know if that's gonna work. So let's just film her doing a thing. Just stay out of her way.
Yeah.
Just let her do something.
What was she fucking on before she made it to set? How long did they have to like kill time before like whatever drug she was on kicked in, and that's when the camera started rolling?
I think that's just pure uncut Channing, baby. I think that was just her. I think
that's
that
her
was just
stone
kind of
cold
like
sober.
her whole deal. You know those simple horror games that are like really popular with like Let's Players right now and everything?
Sure.
If somebody made one of those but they just replaced the monsters with Carol Channing in this movie, it would be the scariest game. Like just her in like the drug scene where she's just like and she's just like freaking out.
Yeah, someone superimposed Carol Channing at the end of this movie where she's dressed as a naval admiral and just like superimpose that over like the monster in any horror movie.
Again, no offense to Carol Channing's immediate family. I'm sure she was lovely and full of love and great. But yes, she scares me in this movie.
She's so like oddly out of place, like story wise as well. Like,
well, what's her motivation through everything? She's the mother and or she's the wife of Jackie Gleason, and I suppose she's concerned about the whereabouts of her husband and her daughter on paper. But like as she like goes and navigates through these scenes, it's like, okay, beginning, I'm gonna like hit my marks, I'm gonna say these lines. Middle, just complete randomizer. And then by the end of the scene, other people have to, like, usher her out of the room.
It's very odd because on paper, as you say, it feels like she's meant to be playing sort of like the stuck-up, button-down gangster's wife. Like, we see her in one scene, like, she's on, like, the city council and she's planning stuff. But very quickly, she hooks up with this commune of hippies because her daughter is in love with one of them. And almost immediately on a dime, she's just like, yeah, all right, fine. You know what? Everyone come home. Like, you 50 plus people, everyone just come back to my house, kind of, cause whatever.
Well, because, like, her daughter refuses to leave without her boyfriend Stash, who I guess is just, like, a really chill nihilist, because nothing ever fucking bothers him whatsoever.
But he's a hippie.
He's a hip, sure. And so they're inseparable, so she says, okay, well, I guess you two can come live with us. And you know what? Your entire fucking commune of 50 people can come by, too. And, Jackie Gleason will be cool with it, because he's not famously a dangerous hothead.
Also, as soon as they all get there, she immediately leaves to go find her. There's no plan involved. It's like, hey, I got my daughter got arrested. Now I'm going to go get her out of there. And then, okay, well, we're all going to go back to my place. And it's like, my husband's been gone for like 12 hours. I bet he's in trouble.
Something suspicious. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm going to go try to seduce, I guess.
And at no point is Jackie Gleason ever aware that there are hippies crashing in his mansion.
That is true. He never found out that.
Yeah.
I'm sure once he goes back and sees that his house is absolutely destroyed, it'll be fine. Yeah, but it is weird because, like, on paper, I keep saying that on paper. It's because of all that LSD, man. Woo! But, like,
So much
Carol Channing is meant to be a character, but Carol Channing's whole deal kind of feels like just like this sort of like energy that people try to contain into like a character. It's exactly as pointless as trying to cast someone like Gilbert Gottfried in like a regular person role.
Yeah.
It's all like, okay, and the boss in this character will be played by Gilbert Gottfried.
And then it's Gilbert Gottfried as he's been played in everything
He's just doing his shtick.
Yeah.
And I think this is very much Carol Channing's whole deal is she's just gonna like, I'm just gonna come and do my Carol Channing thing, and maybe it'll fit into this plot. And then by the end of the movie, she becomes like the queen of the hippies.
Through no happenstance whatsoever.
Yeah, they all stayed at her house, so they just, I guess, elected her queen.
She is queen of the hippies.
And she adopts to it really quick. And the whole time I was like, there's no scene of her, like, indulging in anything with the hippies except that one where she's just lying on the floor.
Yeah.
So, like, whatever weird election process is going on here, we don't see any.
I guess we're meant to believe that she ended up taking some form of drug. I mean, she probably smoked some weed, but a lot of things happened off camera in this movie.
At the same time, though, I'm like, as soon as you see her as leading the hippies, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just based on Carol Channing.
That tracks. After everything that we've seen leading up to this point, I mean, fuck, like, the tamest thing that she does in the movie is right at the beginning where she's having this passive-aggressive TV remote control fight with Jackie Gleason.
And goes on for 3.5 minutes.
Holy fuck, what was going on in that scene?
Yeah, the Wikipedia synopsis for this movie, weirdly, whoever wrote it, it's a really super detailed explanation. This right here, this chunk right here that says prologue, that's all just the watching TV screen.
Fuck.
Whoever edited this wrote down every single fucking thing that happens in like that 10-minute scene where, so this is the literal beginning of the movie. There's no opening credits because everyone's listed in the end credits, which we're gonna get to, holy shit. But yeah, the opening of this movie is Jackie Gleason and Carol Channing hanging out in their apartment, and they're just arguing over what to watch on TV, and Carol Channing pulls out like a second remote control, and they just have like this
Dueling remote control thing, yeah.
endless, not funny scene where they're just switching back and forth on the TV.
Yeah, like one's between like a televised court case that
It's a Senate hearing.
It's a Senate hearing.
It's a Senate hearing, and the people on trial are part of, I guess, the mob or the treaty.
Part of the criminal empire. And, stuff that is actually going to factor into the plot. Everything else are just like weird era-specific commercials or parodies that you would think are like that's supposed to be like satire of the era. But it doesn't really flow well, and you would think a smarter movie would find a way for the commercials and the dialogue in them to weave into the court case. But no, it's just fucking dueling channel surfing.
The weirdest one was there was that, I get this is some sort of for beauty commercial, and it's just this girl who's done up to look like a sexy baby, and she's like, oh, you're just a big ugly lump of, and you can tell she's struggling with the lines. Like the actress herself has no idea what to say. They just told her, stand there and just say something, and so she's like, her arms are crossed, she's like kind of swaying back and forth like she's being held prisoner.
Now you too can be beautiful and sexually desirable like me.
Is this your signature?
I refuse to answer.
Instead of being that fat, disgusting, foul-breathed, slimy, wallowing sow that you are.
There were some really funny moments in like this switching channels moment. There's like a brief commercial they switch to where it's two kids and a dog and they all have cigarettes in their mouth. And then we don't focus on that. We just see that and then like it switches to like to the next thing. But there's also
a
weird
toothpaste commercial where he's listing like all the fucking side effects that you're gonna get from using this toothpaste.
And there's also weird in-jokes that you would only get if you had read the trivia of this or if you were there at the time, because they start watching a movie and then Flo, Carol Channing's all like, I don't want to watch that movie. They always edited the shit to TV. That movie was an Otto Preminger film that famously he was pissed off that they edited the shit out of it in TV. Oh. So it's like, aha! So like, only someone directly in 1968 would get that joke and understand why that was funny. And
finally, justice for Otto.
Yeah.
Release the Otto cut.
All right, so let's try and go through this plot here, whatever it is. It is quite labyrinthian. To go back to the opening of the podcast here, like, if I had not told you ahead of time that Jackie Gleason was a mobster, you would have been lost for like at least the first 15 minutes, because it's a while before they get into those specifics.
Well, he's sitting there in that nice red cardigan. Like, he just looks like a nice retired man. Just sitting in his home wanting to watch John Wayne movies. That's what he looks like.
Yeah, and then fucking Cesar Romero shows up.
Yeah, so Cesar Romero playing Joker on famously like would not shave his mustache for the Joker. I think you said it before. It's oddly less noticeable without the white makeup on his face.
Yeah, I don't know why he's so fucking proud of that mustache. It's not a great mustache. But yes, it's way more noticeable when he was wearing... It's like a blonde mustache. Yeah.
He also has a habit in this movie of just teleporting to wherever he needs to be and just being there at the exact right time. Because you don't see him pull up to the house.
No.
At all. He's just there. There's a car there that they think is him, but it's not him, and he just appears at the door later.
Dressed the same as, like, his young associate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very weird how him and Frankie Avalon showed up. Like, amazing fashion in this movie. We have to spend some time talking about the fashion in this. But, like, it is weird how in that opening scene, Cesar Romero comes to Jackie Gleason's house to introduce his young associate, Frankie Avalon, and they are dressed identically. They look like they're the Halloween Mafia, because they got, like...
a bright orange shirt.
Over black tuxedos, yeah. So, Jackie Gleason is tough Tony Banks. He's a retired mobster. He got out of the game. He's retired. His daughter has brought home a filthy hippie named Stash, and they are making out in the driveway. He accosts the hippie. He calls him a lovely late 60s era slur, which we won't repeat here. This movie has some problems.
Product of its time, unfortunately.
Product of its time, yeah. And then after we're introduced to the hippie, Cesar Romero shows up, who is a henchy. And was a great gangster name.
Yeah.
And he explains the plot, which was utterly lost on you two, and I only knew what was going on because, again, I read the Wikipedia synopsis before this.
There's this, like, long sequence where, like, he's, like, laying out all the exposition of, like, the history of Jackie Gleason's, like, career in the mob. He wants him to go into the prison that is holding Mickey Rooney because he's going to testify to the fucking Senate committee. While all this is being detailed, we are intercut. Literally, the screen is literally...
Yeah, right.
Right down the
part.
middle, there is like black and white footage of Jackie Gleason's career in crime, where he's like running out of a bank carrying a fucking safe on his back.
And I thought it was a filing cabinet. Like,
yeah.
Like, it was like he had a full filing cabinet.
But it's the size of a goddamn refrigerator, and he's got this fake mustache on, and
extra fake. Carol Channing's also in on this.
Yeah, she's the getaway driver.
She shoots half of his mustache off.
It is, I don't know what this is. I don't know if this is like a flashback to like a crime that actually happened. Because traditionally, the wives of mafiosos don't join them on their criminal escapades.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've also been watching a lot of Sopranos lately, so I might be. Which is also about a character named Tony. I'm just realizing.
If you are married to Carol Channing,
she's coming on. She's coming on the guys.
You want part of the plan?
She is the one that will also save the day with her antics.
Absolutely. Yeah. She's good in the clutch.
But it's also like the flashback is also
she was never part of the heist. She just showed up on her own
with a gun. But like the flashback is also done in this 3 times speed. Like it looks like something out of a Benny Hill show. You're just I'm hearing the Benny Hill theme song as they're just running about, and it's a farce. Like the cops are like trying to swerve out of the way of an old lady who turns out is the assistant. So that's the other thing. So the assistant that he has, like this
Arnold Stang, classic nerd character actor. You might remember him from It's a Mad, Mad, Mad World. He usually wears thick bottle-ribbed glasses.
Yeah.
He's the guy who always overreacts to things.
It seems like he lives with them.
Yeah, he's
like a close family friend, and then he dies like 15 minutes into the movie.
He's killed by Cesar Romero, I think.
Yeah, because Jackie Gleason doesn't want to go through with it, and then in the middle of the night he gets a call that like, oh, at his money laundering operation, someone left the lights on. Jackie Gleason goes to check it out, and there's his associate dead inside the car wash.
Sending a message.
Yeah, Jackie Gleason gets the hint. He goes to the pier, meets up with the Joker, and he's like spirited away into the jail.
But also, that assistant guy never heard about it again. No one talks about it. No one mentions him. No one says, "Hey, where's?" He's dead. But like,
he does show up in the trip later on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Super briefly.
It's just like the beginning of the movie made it seem like, oh, this is kind of like a buddy comedy thing with the two of them. Like they're gonna. He's the Jackie Gleason's the straight man. He's gonna try to do this, and this guy's
it'd be the Ralph and Norton thing from the Honeymooners.
Yeah, and then it's just like, oh, I guess we're not doing that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, did you mention Mickey Rooney?
Yeah.
So the plot ostensibly of the movie is that Cesar Romero wants. Forgive me if you've already said this. Cesar Romero wants Jackie Gleason to go into jail to kill Mickey Rooney, who is turning state's evidence on them, but he's kind of in witness protection almost.
He's like
no one can get to him.
He's separated from like the main holding area. He's like in sort of like the private cell areas.
He has a stock ticker.
He's got a TV, a stock ticker. Phone. Yeah, he gets like Perrier delivered to him.
I mean, the thing they do explain all of this, but as we were saying, as they're explaining this, there's like a split screen thing, and we're watching the black and white Keystone Cops thing, and by the end, it's so well done. It's such a good piece of comedic slapstick action that by the end of it, I'm all like, I didn't hear a word they were saying. I wasn't paying attention to what they were saying.
It was probably really fucking dry, and some producer was like, you gotta literally interject something here to hold people's attention.
But it's literally the plot of the movie. If it's that dry, it's a bit of a problem with the screenplay.
If we could just put our hands up in front of the screen and just listen to the dialogue, it probably would have helped us miles better than what we actually experienced.
But so as a movie plot, it's a pretty good idea. Like, a former mobster comes out of retirement, has to go into a prison to otherwise his family's in danger, so he has to go into prison to assassinate this guy, and then he's home free. Like, there's stakes in there. There's a story there. There's things for the characters to do. It just feels like there are two completely different movies that were just intercut with each other, and that's what this ended up being. Because there's the whole prison segment, and then there's everything outside of the prison, which is just a weird hippie commune, out of control, no idea what's going on.
I mean, 1968, hippies, you know, for lack of a better term, were hot, you know, like that was kind of like a new concept on the market, and people just kind of wanted to see hippie-related media, and Otto Preminger, a very old Hungarian man who was decisively not a hippie at all, was kind of all like, yeah, we can figure something out, right? What do hippies do? They, like, hang out and do drugs? Yeah, well, I don't know.
I'll throw them a bone here.
Yeah.
Do a whole, extended, like, LSD trip sequence.
Yeah, they're trying to get the youths to come see his movie. So, like, have you guys ever seen, there's some videos that people put out of, like, what a language sounds like to people who don't speak the language? And it's like, for example, they have like two people who are speaking English gibberish to each other, and it sounds like English, but you have no way of understanding it, because that's what it sounds like if someone hears English and they don't understand a word of it.
I think
it just sounds like that. Yeah. It's a really interesting idea, and that's what I feel like they've done with all of the hippies. It's like the hippies are talking in a way that it just doesn't make any sense, but it's what people think hippies sound like. And that whole thing just runs through, because they're like trying to talk about what the hippies' political beliefs are, but it's never like clear. Like at one point it says like, "What do you want?" It's like, "I want a peaceful place for butterflies." Like that sounds like something a hippie would say, but that's not really based in anything.
The screenplay,
gibberish.
The screenplay's having a lot of fun at their expense, yeah, because the hippies don't really stand for anything. It's just very unspecific peace and love type nonsense, and yeah, so maybe the screenplay isn't on the hippies' side. It is really hard to tell, because like it's coming out right in the middle of the free love movement. It's not like if this came out like 10 years after the fact, you could call it like a parody that's like commenting on it, but like this is something that's commenting on something that's happening currently as this movie was coming out,
and trying to ride that wave of success,
ride the wave, as Jackie Gleason does later on in prison, which I'm just gonna say maybe the worst place for an acid trip, in a prison cell that you cannot escape.
Wait, so before we get there, we have to talk about the professor, who I guess is another plant. It seemed like.
So he meets up, Jackie Gleason, once he's in the prison, he meets up with the Riddler himself, Frank Gorshin, who lays out, here's where Mickey Rooney is. I'm going to partner you up with this sort of like nerdy cellmate of yours, who I think is in for like...
He is played by Austin Pendleton, great character actor. He's been in a bunch of stuff like Short Circuit. He was the voice in Finding Nemo. I, of course, will always remember him fondly as Max, the lovable, easygoing sidekick of the villainous Doc Hopper in the Muppet movie.
So the professor is a hippie as part of this, and he got wrapped up in this caper. I don't know how, but then they said like, "What are you in for?" And he says for burning his draft card, and he's got some like posters that they let him keep for some reason.
Yeah,
in this prison.
One poster of someone literally eating the Statue of Liberty's ass.
Yeah,
it's hard to tell what was going on.
This is one of the things that really made me wonder, like, is this pro hippie or anti hippie? Because as soon as he tells that, the two other people, who are criminals, by the way, one of whom seems to be a serial rapist.
Leech, who's sort of the third member of Jackie Gleason's inside crew. Yes, he cheerfully identifies himself as a serial rapist in the opening scene. Did you recognize that guy? This guy is...
he looked familiar.
He's Michael Constantine, who you might remember better as the old dad from My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Wow.
To give me any word, then I will tell you while the root of the word is Greek.
Okay. How about the word rape? I
know all about that. But there's like... So the two of them then, as soon as they find out that this guy burned his draft card because he didn't want to fight and die in Vietnam, they start laying into. He's like, "What's the matter? You don't like America? You don't like the Bill of Rights?
Get off your fucking high horse, you career criminals."
One a mafia, the other a serial rapist. Suddenly they're extremely patriotic about all this.
I mean, again, I'm watching a lot of The Sopranos right now, and that totally tracks within the world of these bruised masculinity, ego, basic like crybabies who just like go and do like the most horrible things in the world, but they still have like this weird code of ethics.
What's that one line that Paul Sorvino says in The Rocketeer? "I may be a criminal, but I'm an American criminal."
Yes.
The professor is interestingly, even though he is a hippie and he's part of them, they really try to distance him from what the other hippies talk about, because he is so useful in everything that he does. He solves every single problem.
Yeah, he's the brains of the operation.
He can,
by himself.
He can turn a radio into a fucking telephone through a TV set.
Okay, wait, let's talk about this, because this doesn't make any sense. I mean, there are so many things that don't make any sense in this, but my big problem with this, okay, so we get into the prison, and Frank Gorshin tells Jackie Gleason that no one can get to Mickey Rooney. No one knows where he is. He's in like his own private cell. No one can get to him. He has wall-to-wall security all the time. And then the professor makes up this sort of telegraph wire radio invention thing that is able to send audio messages to Mickey Rooney's cell coming through the speakers of his television, and if he attaches some metal to the speakers of the wire of the television, he can talk back to them and they can communicate that way. My main question is, if no one knew where Mickey Rooney was, how did they know he had a television?
I guess he's a witness protection. They must have just assumed that he was.
I guess. It's a pretty big leap, but...
The other thing about the professor is that despite the fact that he's a hippie, he talks very articulately about everything, and he's the one who actually cites the specific clauses in the Bill of Rights that are being trampled on by the prison guards. Like, so he actually knows more than anybody about
He's
everything.
actually read the Constitution.
Yeah,
don't question his patriotism.
He seems like he's in a completely different movie just because of how useful he is compared to everyone else.
He's one of those hyper-annoying atheists that knows the Bible better than most Christians do, just so he can point out contradictions in them.
Then he has, so he also don't know why if he's also part of this crew, I don't know why he was allowed to keep his stationery, which was all
laced with LSD.
Which will be important later.
Yes.
A very important sequence in this movie.
So like Mickey Rooney, like he has the two-way conversation with Jackie Gleason. He says he puts two and two together. Says like, you must be in here to kill me.
What I would have to assume, speaking of what you're saying, Brett, about like it did seem like all of them were able to bring in a lot of personal effects into the.
Frank Gorshin had a bread knife.
Yeah, well, he's like the man on the inside.
Yeah,
he's like the dude on the inside that can get you whatever you want and everything.
Sure.
But yeah, it is interesting the amount of stuff that the professor was able to bring into the thing. He has like an entire suitcase with him practically,
and a whole stationery kit that is all completely laced with LSD.
Do you think he like dipped the paper one by one and then like put it in the box and then like laid it on top? Because that looked like a fresh pack of stationery. It didn't look like anything was wrong. And it wasn't the stationery. What now? He also soaked it in the envelopes.
The envelopes,
because
the paper, the pen, I assume.
Because I'm sure like that would make it through the screening process. Like the guards are going to check for contraband, but they're just going to see a stack of envelopes and they'll figure like, okay, that nothing suspicious here.
So I guess somewhere along the way, the professor got arrested for burning his draft card, and then somewhere in between getting arrested and getting sent to prison, the mafia got a hold of him and said, we need your expertise to help our guy on the inside do like this inside job for reasons like they never really go into like why the professor got roped into this, like how connected he is necessarily. Did he think he was going to get sprung from the prison? Did he just bring the LSD on a whim? It didn't seem like the LSD was specifically part of the plan until it became the whole plan later on.
I think you just answered the question for yourself there. Like, don't think about it too much. The reason he's in the prison is because we gotta find a way to get Jackie Gleason high on LSD.
I feel like that could be like an alternate tagline for the you look at the poster, it's like, Skidoo! Don't think about it too much.
Yeah.
So outside of the prison, do we want to go back out there to maybe one of my favorite scenes in
At least my favorite set.
Yes! Let's talk about this. Okay, so Frankie Avalon is playing like a low-level stooge henchman. Angie's working for Cesar Romero.
He pulls out the chart. He's like 8th in line for leadership. So.
Yeah. He's got a fucking swinging apartment, man. Holy fuck.
There is no way in hell Seth MacFarlane didn't see this movie at some point, because this clearly was the inspiration for Quagmire's apartment. Like, he has like a big... Can I just give like a big shout out to big chunky 60s remote controls?
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of them in this movie, and it's just like, I wish they all looked like that.
The digital age stole so much from us.
Truly.
Just one button functionality and it'll like spin like a bookcase around to reveal a bar, or to lower a revolving bed and to reveal a desk. It's so fucking cool.
I want to talk about the biggest missed opportunity for a joke in this whole movie.
Yes.
Because when you're introduced to this apartment, he is getting a haircut, so you assume he's at a barbershop, but it turns out it's in his apartment, and he just pushes the button, and the wall that he's on rotates and takes the barber with it into this secret compartment, like in a Frankenstein movie.
I want to know the inner life of that barber. Like, where does he go when the wall turns around?
But it's a two-sided wall, so the only thing that wall turns into is the barber shop. At one point later, when like the buttons start going haywire and everything starts moving, and the barbershop turns around, comes back in, and the barber's not there.
Yeah.
All you have to do is have that actor just stand there. It's like
he's ready to go again.
He should have been like reading a book or smoking a cigarette or something. Yeah, no, I agree. That's a big missed opportunity.
I mean, what is on the other side of that wall? Because I imagine if someone is caught in between that revolving door, you're going to get crushed on the other side of that thing, or at least caught up with like gears and everything.
No, I think he's just got a little mini fridge in there. There's like a doorway that leads back to his house, which is attached to this building.
Yeah,
somewhere.
this
he goes
is
to see his wife and
full house.
daughter. How was work today? Oh, terrible.
Where do you go every day?
For 35 minutes.
They're at dinner, and then in the middle of the conversation, and then like a little light goes on. It's all like, hold on. He just goes into the barber shop and like...
So both Carol Channing and Jackie Gleason's daughter, on their own volition, just show up at this guy's apartment to ask where the hell is...
They abandon the hippies to go without explanation.
They leave like 50 unsupervised hippies alone in their home.
Yeah, they're just at home with all of the hippies, and then it seems like Carol Channing just got home. She looks around, notices Tony isn't there, and is all like, "Where's my husband?" and leaves. It's like she wasn't there for any length of time that would make her think anything suspicious was going on. I don't know. He's just out.
He went to work.
He's a busy man. Oh, I guess he is retired. I guess that is.
He owns a car wash.
That is true. He is. You know who else owns a car wash? Tony Soprano. There's lots of parallels. There's lots of weird parallels that I didn't realize were going on until I watched this
Massive
shit.
inspiration.
Yeah.
And then, so Carol Channing comes in with this absolutely amazing and yet horrifying yellow dress with a big fluffy cuffs and a hat like Big Bird on LSD.
It's like a holdover from the outfit she's wearing at the court, where she has like a big poofy Muppet hat. And then when she gets to Frankie Avalon's place, this dress is amazing. I would love to see this style of dress make a comeback. It's so cool. It's got like...
A zipper that spirals up the dress.
It's a spiral zipper, so it actually goes across the front of her body, and then it goes all the way around. It looks like a bitch to get on.
Yeah.
Off would be easy, but like on would be one thing. I mean, this is my favorite Carol Channing moment in the entire thing. She goes over to Frankie Avalon. She's trying to get information out of him.
Where's my husband?
Where's
my husband?
And then within seconds, she is blown away by the look of this place.
Yes, and Frankie Avalon keeps hitting buttons, and like different music comes on, and then when a song comes on that Carol Channing loves, there's just like a full uninterrupted 2 minutes of Carol Channing just flailing. I guess you could charitably call it dancing, but it's mostly just her waving her arms, and it gets to a point where Frankie Avalon starts getting a little nervous. He's all like, "Knock it off! Knock it! What are you doing? Knock it off!" And she won't listen to
That's
him.
not dancing. That's not dancing.
God. God, that was funny. That was wild.
The director off screen is going, "Stop it! Stop it!" And she just won't.
Frankie, stop her! She's out of control.
How do you stop this?
You can't stop the Channing. You can't. Once the Channing has begun, you can't stop it.
This is our introduction to the crime organization
right
here. He's got like a chart, which is also permanently part of the wall decor that's on the rotating.
So I love this. Yeah, there's like a 3-panel thing, like the changing billboards that you see. I don't know what the technical term for that is, but like on one panels when they line up, it's a bunch of sexy ladies. On the other hand, it's horses or racetracks. I guess that's like his neutral room era. And then he presses it a third time, and there's this big, complicated whiteboard that shows the
flowchart,
the dichotomy, the hierarchy. Thank you, of all the people in the. It's just like, did you have that installed? How useful is that?
Yeah.
Do you regularly hold meetings at your pad?
What happens if you have to update that? What if someone's killed off? What if someone just like dies of natural causes? What if someone's promoted?
So like, fuck, I gotta get like my guys in here. They gotta peel it off. They gotta put it back on. That's a whole day.
This is also one of my one of the times I was confused about the politics of this movie, because he's pointing out, it's like, this is the most important organization in the world, except the Pentagon.
Yeah.
It's like, what? So what do you say? Like, is the Pentagon like the most important organization in the world, or are we not supposed to take that seriously? Like, is it anti-hippie or is it pro-hippie?
I think he says the second most efficient, other than the Pentagon, only we're better run or something like that.
Yeah.
Some
like,
weird dig at the Pentagon.
And I'm just like, yeah, the Pentagon didn't do very well with Vietnam, so maybe that's not the best.
It's almost like the movie is trying to get across that it's all like hippies and mobsters, they're both kind of fucked up, huh? And it's all like, no, mobsters are much worse.
Yeah.
They're much worse than hippies.
So the daughter and Carol Channing convinced Frankie Avalon to take them to go see God, aka Groucho Marx, the head mafioso who is...
Except Carol Channing just goes home and fucks out of the movie for like a good 45 minutes.
Right, because he decides, I'm going to take, the younger, hotter one with me out of the water.
He saw what Carol Channing was like. He's like, I am not taking that woman on the ocean.
Don't leave me alone with her.
I felt really bad for the poor actress who played the daughter, because it seemed like her only role in this movie was to be creepily undressed by other people. It happens three times.
It happens 3 times, and each time it's like she doesn't respond to it. Like,
no, she just sits there placidly, and it's all like...
just kind of lets it happen. But anyway, so now they have to go see God, who lives on a boat because he's paranoid of being caught or killed.
Yes,
Yeah.
God is the head of this mafia, played by Groucho Marx. Of course, he's not literally God. He is...
Which is disappointing.
It's like short for Godfather, but they just find new ways of just being. Have you seen God? Has anyone found? Tell me where God is. Like
Jameson, do you realize it was just now that I realized that's why he's called God, because he's the Godfather? Fuck, I feel dumb. Why did I say that on the podcast? He's the Godfather. Of course, that's why he's called God. Thank you, Jay. You're not just a pretty face. All right.
Thank you, Kaz. You're welcome.
You're a pretty face at this thing, and that's it. That's
yeah.
all you are.
Some throwaway trivia here that doesn't really amount to anything. The yacht that God is on, that is John Wayne's actual yacht.
Really?
Yes, that I guess they had borrowed because I guess John Wayne and Otto Preminger were bros or whatnot.
With the giant fucking TV and with the closed caption.
I don't know if the
closed-circuit
interiors
TV.
or what the yacht is.
In my heart, they changed nothing about that.
Yes, that's exactly
what do we have? It's like, well, he's got these giant buttons that open and close doors and starts a TV and the spy cameras in everybody's room. He's like, you know what? We'll work it into the plot.
That is John Wayne's snooker table. That is John Wayne's exercise bike.
That is John Wayne's mistress running around in the green dress. Just put her in
with her massive 4-inch long fingernails.
You know what?
6'2".
John Wayne absolutely had cameras in every room of his house. I'm not. Yes, I completely agree with that. Yes.
And then, so, do you think Groucho Marx is just one of those people who is absolutely 100% impossible to direct? Because he's definitely not doing his own thing.
No, he's completely checked out. Most of the time, he's not looking at the people he's in scenes with. I think he's clearly reading his lines.
You can see his eyes
camera.
move. You can see his eyes like reading something. As he's manhandling the daughter and like undressing her, taking off these big buttons, he's clearly looking off screen, reading camera, not even looking at her, not looking at what he's doing, managing to unbutton them pretty quickly.
Yeah.
He did not enjoy his performance in this movie. He went on record saying
I didn't enjoy his performance.
He did not. And that's another little bit of trivia. Groucho was actually cast a few days before he started filming in this movie. Al Preminger tried to get a bunch of other people before he settled on him. The list includes Frank Sinatra, Rod Steiger, Anthony Quinn, Zero Mostel, Alfred Hitchcock, and strangest of all, Republican Senator Everett Dirksen. He asked all of them before he settled on Groucho Marx, arguably someone who was more famous than all of those people combined.
Maybe not Sinatra.
Maybe not Hitchcock, maybe not Sinatra, but, I'd call them equal.
What a grab bag of people. Like, just like picking names out of a fucking phone book.
I
had no idea who this character was.
He certainly didn't behave like any character Groucho Marx ever played. That was like one of the least funny performances I've ever seen from him.
Yeah, he's the head of the mafia. He's like an actual criminal, and I guess they try and infuse him with like a little bit of menace, but he's so bored and checked out. It's so off-putting every time they cut back to him, because he's clearly not engaged by the material, and he doesn't really want to be there.
You would expect every single line out of his mouth would be a bit. But it's
and also, reportedly, Otto Preminger was a dick to him while they were filming it, so why would he want to?
No laughing matter.
The coolest thing that probably inspired, that came out of Groucho being in this movie, to research for his role in this movie...
For 3 days.
For 3 days, Groucho actually did take LSD. Even though I don't think his character takes LSD in the movie.
It doesn't.
He smokes a joint at the end, but that's about it.
Yeah, and writer Paul Krasner was with him on his LSD trip, and he wrote an article for the 1981 High Times magazine titled My Acid Trip with Groucho. And I read an excerpt from it, and it sounds really lovely. It kind of sounds like doing like an LSD trip with my dad, frankly. It sounded like just like really nice and pleasant. Here's a brief excerpt. We had long periods of silence and of listening to music. I was accustomed to playing rock and roll while tripping, but the record collection here was all classical and Broadway show albums. We were listening to the score of a musical comedy called Fanny. There was one song called Welcome Home, where the lyrics go something like, "Welcome home," says the clock, and the chair says, "Welcome home," and so do other various pieces of furniture. Groucho started acting out each line, as if he were actually being greeted by the clock, the chair, and so forth. He was like a child, charmed by his own ability to respond to music that way. There was a point when our conversation somehow got into negative space. Groucho was equally bitter about institutions such as marriage, like quicksand, and individuals such as Lyndon Johnson, that potato head. Eventually, I asked, "What gives you hope?" Groucho thought for a moment, and then he said just one word out loud. People.
Aww.
He seemed like a sweet guy. He seemed like a really nice man.
Yeah.
Probably didn't deserve to get bullied by Otto Preminger. I'll say one last thing I'll say about Groucho is that in a color movie in the 60s, when the cameras were a little bit better quality, that grease paint mustache is very evident and looks fucking terrible. It looks really bad.
Like, I think at that era, at that time, he was hosting a game show.
You Bet Your Life?
Something like that,
I think that's what it's called, with the duck? Yeah.
Yeah, and he didn't have a mustache.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
Well, he never had a mustache. It was always painted on.
Right.
Yeah.
So why go with the fucking grease paint mustache?
Because Otto Preminger made him.
Jesus.
He also kept his cigar too, even though it doesn't really he doesn't do anything with it. It's just like you got Groucho Marx. People want Groucho Marx. He's not.
Why not give people Groucho Marx? So back at the prison, Jackie Gleason fucking trips out on LSD.
And this is a very long sequence, and I can tell you, last time I watched this movie was well over a year ago, and I don't remember having the reaction that I had today. I was deeply uncomfortable for this entire LSD trip.
All the best special effects 1960s can throw at you.
Well, it is helped by the fact that right now, currently, as we are recording it, it is ridiculously hot outside. It's 29 degrees and smoky and not great in here right now. But just sort of like the build-up to the LSD trip, there's just like that moment when you do mushrooms or Molly or whatever, where it's like, it's the anticipation, right? There's kind of like a weird creeping dread was all like, I'm going to start being very high very soon, and I have to kind of reckon with the fact that this is about to happen. I know for my case, I start perspiring quite a bit once, the drugs kick in and everything. So I was legitimately having like a sense memory watching Jackie Gleason on this trip, and I was not having fun. And unfortunately, this LSD trip goes on for quite a while.
You know what I will say? That I was actually surprised and impressed by Jackie Gleason's performance during this part of the movie. Like a lot of the other times, he seems like he's just phoning in and falling back on his Jackie Gleason charm. Like bit of the Honeymooners comes out a lot. But this time he's like going up between these manic happy episodes, these deep introspective, horrible, depressing thoughts. Because one of the ongoing themes in there is he kind of doesn't think that his daughter is his. Because he keeps saying...
That's a subplot they keep going back to.
And then never finish.
They never finish it.
Because he keeps saying, like, no one that pretty can be my daughter. And so he starts having visions about, like, what is, like... Is she my daughter? And you can see like the remorse and the fear and the depression in him. Yeah. And then he has this moment where he realizes, like, no, she's got my ears. She's got my ears, and he's instantly jubilous and running around, and he sells it. He's like, the comedy man comes out.
And then he hallucinates his dead friend saying, "Oh, like, nah, Tony, she's my kid. She looks like me." And then he's immediately sad again.
Instantly drops, and every bit of it is believable. And then afterwards, when the professor says, like, okay, you've gone through the trip, he's lost his ego now. Now he can, like, be his real self and his true person. He actually is so crestfallen about himself and his life that he just decides not to go through with this assassination plan. And it's hard for him, and you can see that in him, and everyone's really helping him out with this.
Yeah.
I felt for him in those moments. He really sells those less comedic moments, those sad moments for his character. And then after that, he doesn't really do much of anything. He just kind of goes along because the professor's the one with all the plans.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because now he's trapped in prison because he refuses to do the job that God sent him there to do. So now the movie becomes, how do I get out of prison? Luckily, I have this genius with me, and we go into this big, elaborate escape.
What an escape.
What an escape.
Holy fuck.
That's how you get out of Alcatraz, boys.
And it's great because at no point, like, in any other, like, prison breakout movie, there will be a scene where they break down step by step what they gotta do. We had to, like, kind of follow along for ourselves.
And it's also the stupidest fucking thing. Because it's broad fucking there are scenes where someone will... There's a scene where fucking Michael Constantine sneaks into an operating room where someone is literally... A bunch of surgeons are literally operating on a person, and he is in full view of everything, and he just literally tiptoes up to, like, the oxygen tank and drags the oxygen tank out of the room, and no one notices him just because they're doing surgery. But it's like, peripheral vision is a thing that exists.
Yeah,
if someone comes into a room, you would notice it.
There's a part where the professor, like, breaks into a kitchen, and he drops in through the ceiling, or through an air duct or something, and it's a packed fucking kitchen, and he is just on, like, the other side of, like, the stock shelf. Someone had to have seen him, or, like, it has to happen so fucking often that people are dropping from the ceiling that no one pays any mind to it.
My favorite bit of that editing is, so the three of them sneak into a room because they pretend that they have measles. They sneak Lithuanian measles, that's very important, because I guess they drink aftershave. I don't know, it was a throwaway line, I don't really know. But Professor gets out of the locked room that they are in by crawling through this air duct, and then he crawls through the air duct and he goes into the kitchen and he drops down, and then as soon as he drops down into the kitchen, we can see that Jackie Gleason is already in the kitchen. How did he get in the kitchen? It's never explained.
No. The only reason that the professor got through that air duct is because he's the only one that could fit in that air duct.
Yeah, but if Jackie Gleason could sneak into the kitchen, no problem, why did he bother going through the air duct in the first place?
And it really doesn't seem like this kitchen staff mind. Yeah, prisoners coming through all the time. They look at food. Sometimes they take a little extra. That's how a prison works, right? Like, that's fine.
Do they even, like, lock the doors at night at this prison?
I think they do.
Seems like they can come and go as you please.
Well, they did also have, like, the disguise. There was, like, the red armband, which I guess means you're
a trustee.
Yeah, you're a prisoner who kind of works for the prison, so you get, like, a little bit more responsibility. So I think the idea there is if you have the cap and the armband on, you can kind of go wherever you want.
Right. But so the professor took the ones that, because they originally gave that to Jackie Gleason so he could wear them so he can go kill Mickey Rooney, but then he decides not to do it. So the professor then takes the armband and the hat, puts them on so he could sneak into the kitchen. Jackie Gleason doesn't have these on, and he's still just wandering around through the kitchen.
I wouldn't be questioning this scene so much if... Why was Jackie Gleason in the kitchen? There was no reason for him to be in the kitchen. It didn't add anything. He didn't do anything to further the plot. Yeah. It was just weird that he was in... That must have been a mistake. Because it doesn't make any fucking logical sense for him to be there.
Because what he does, So what happens is, the sequence of events, the crux of this escape plan hinges on getting the entire prison high on LSD. So the professor brings his entire stationery pack and just opens up this, I think it's like a
milkshake?
No, I think it's
like an industrial mixer. So I guess the idea is that was like bread or something.
Yeah, I think they're making bread. Something for the lunch.
He dumps an entire pack of stationery paper into bread dough. And we're led to believe that, no one noticed. Hey, this dough is literally full of fucking paper. I guess let's just make this. But, like, it also gives the implication that one mixer, everybody got to eat out of it. Because literally everyone, all the guards, all the prisoners, everyone's high out of their mind on LSD.
Including the warden and the senator of California, who we see earlier in the movie. He comes back for this one little bit. He doesn't actually do anything.
No. They don't do anything. The senator is played by Peter Lawford. The warden is played by Burgess Meredith. I only mentioned that because I mentioned them earlier. They don't do anything. They're just in the movie. There's just, cameos. There's just lots of cameos.
And it's also, that guy had enough stationery laced with LSD to essentially poison the entire prison and it's not a light trip. Like, they took a lot each because nobody knows what's going on.
It leads to a gosh dang musical number with fucking
Was that what that was? That Technicolor garbage can nightmare?
So after the professor does that, he goes over to the hanging pots and pans and just like dead face just starts clanging on them in the laziest fashion, and all the cooks turn around and look at him and going, "Hey, you can't do that. Hey, stop that, you can't do that." And that's what gets everyone's attention. And then Jackie Gleason sneaks into the giant refrigerator.
Oh, they need the bags. Yeah, right.
But then he doesn't have the knife because the professor has the knife. that they need to use to cut the bags to get the...
It's almost like no one was paying attention to continuity on this movie.
Nobody was.
The writers were on fucking LSD for most of the time.
They probably were.
Most likely, yeah.
Yeah, I imagine.
And then the plan, as far as I can tell, the plan was do all that, get everybody high so nobody notices, or because they are so high, the professor can then just walk up to the warden and say, "Hey, warden, I need your keys," and the warden's just going to give you his keys because I guess they're that high.
Which he does, yeah.
And then so they got the oxygen tank and they got the bags, and then they sneak into the laundry room where there are sewing machines to repair
the uniforms.
The uniforms.
Yeah.
So they use the sewing machine to stitch these giant food produce bags into a giant sack.
Hot air balloon. Yeah.
It's a giant sack. They've got the oxygen canister, which they're just going to use so they can create a flame, and they got a bunch of rope somewhere. You never see where they got the rope, and then they sneak out in the trash, and then take a bunch of trash cans, make a makeshift hot air balloon in the middle of the yard while the tower guards are watching them do it, but they're too high to notice that it's anything wrong, and then ignite the oxygen canisters to then float out of Alcatraz and then sail off into the water to get to where God's boat is.
Very, very well recanted, Brett. You did forget to mention the part that happens right before they build the balloon.
The reason I didn't mention that is because it has nothing
It
to
has
do
zero
with
to do.
what happens.
Zero to do. For some reason, before it's a perfectly easy to follow A to B to C thing. It's like, get the tower guards high, build the balloon in front of them, and then they'll just think it's a hallucination and they won't worry about it. For some reason, we have to have an entire musical number with people in trash cans doing choreography, singing a song about garbage falling in love with each other and dancing.
Like the half-used banana, whose girlfriend is Anna, who shouted at us out of this can. Who said the blue Brussels sprout, dippity-pie. If only me and the banana could get out. We'd find an asparagus who'd stand up and marry us, but the first thing to do is get out.
And you can't tell what's really going on because, like, the color saturation just gets out of fucking control. The hues switch from, like, this hot pink to orange to yellow to, like, puke green.
Well, because drugs, man.
You couldn't get that across with just dancing garbage?
I forgot to mention, the music and the songs in this are by our old buddy Harry Nilsson, the screenwriter of The Telephone. This time not writing a screenplay, just like sticking with what he does best. He's also the younger of the two tower guards in that scene.
Yeah.
Who's the other tower guard was a person?
The other tower guard is a guy named Fred Clark, who is fourth billed in this movie, and I can't quite figure out why, because I'm looking into this.
Because it matched the lyrics to the song.
I guess that was like the time. First of all, look at this guy's Wikipedia photo.
Hell yeah.
That's a man. That's a fucking man right there.
That's my dad's boss.
Yeah. Yeah, it just seems like he was a really solid film and character actor. He was in big movies. He's in Sunset Boulevard. He's in some other stuff, Place in the Sun, but he's never been the lead, and he has...
he's not the lead in this movie either.
He has very high billing, and yet he is playing a tower guard. I think he might also be the toothpaste guy from the beginning.
Maybe.
He's not credited that way, yeah. But I'm sure in 1968 he was one of those character actors where you were like, oh, that guy.
So God talks to the hippie boyfriend on the boat and says, like, hey, we got to corner this, like, under 25 market, and we're going to use the hippie movement to do it. And the hippie says, like, I'll get right on that. I'm just going to make a quick phone call. And he sends out a fucking SOS to his buddies.
So what happens is, like, he's trying to corner the market. I guess it's on a drug trade. I don't know what this mafia deals in the first place.
God's very unspecific. It's just like, you deal with me, hippie man. I'll supply you with the stuff, and then you'll deal the stuff, and it's like...
And you'll make $150,000. And the hippie goes, oh, no thanks. What's the matter? I thought you liked money. It's like, I like money, but business bores me.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so then the hippie's not interested. And then later, I don't know why he manages to convince him to make the phone call.
And it feels like this should be the crux of the whole hippies versus gangsters thing, because if Groucho is, like, making him sell drug, I'm assuming cocaine and heroin, maybe, something bad, anything like that, then the hippie would be all like, but, like, I'm gonna sell, like, the good, like, mind-expanding drugs, man, and Groucho's all like, oh, tell me more, like, something like that, but, like, the film doesn't want to give us any specifics into what they're doing. Non-specific crime things
Yeah.
I guess.
Do we want to talk about, like, the fucking riddle he sent to the hippies to let them know where they...
If you can remember
So
it.
I think what happens is that he realizes now that Jackie Gleason's daughter is now in danger. I don't know how he realizes it, but he does. So he decides, okay, I'll pretend to go along with this business deal, send a coded message to my friends so they can come rescue us. I think that's what goes through.
Yeah.
I don't know why he manages to piece that together in between bouts with this, like, very sexually aggressive assistant that Groucho has, who seems to just be, like, is wearing an amazing dress, but he's just...
That shows, like, a good 15% of her ass.
Yeah, like, you see the tip of that crack in that thing.
There's a scene where she's chasing...
Yeah,
it's weird. She attacks the hippie sexually, but then she's in love with Frankie Avalon, and she ends up getting married to Frankie Avalon.
And then making out with Frankie Avalon's dad.
Even though the name of that character is God's mistress, so it's kind of odd that she just gets married to a random guy for no reason.
She just kind of chases after, because at first she's not interested in Frankie Avalon, and then she just changes tune. Again, not important.
Presumably she's been trapped on that boat with Groucho Marx for something like 10 years or
yes,
whatever.
Groucho mentions that he's like a germaphobe, and he has been on this yacht for 10 years. He doesn't go outside, chugs Dramamine. God is a very tragic character in this. That's why it's weird hiring Groucho for it, because there's nothing terribly funny about this character.
Or like in the cases where comedians will pull like a dramatic turn and give like a really weighty performance. He doesn't even do that.
He doesn't do anything.
Does Groucho tell a single joke in this movie? I'm trying to remember. Are there any one-liners?
There's one bit of physical comedy he does that I think was all him, and that's where he's like lining up to do a shot on the snooker table, and he like forces himself forward on the ship, and and he rings up the captain and says like, "I thought I told you to keep the water steady or to keep the boat steady."
I mean, that is fun. The concept of a snooker table on a boat is very funny.
That was John Wayne's snooker table.
That was John Wayne's snooker table, yeah.
So yeah, he gets the coded message to the hippies. The hippies decipher it, and then it's all hands on deck.
They decipher that they've been kidnapped by God and they're on a yacht, and they decipher what pier they left. But how the fuck did they find them in the middle of the ocean? Because did he give them the longitude and the latitude?
It's Pier 17. It's like 20 knots off of Pier 17. Let's go.
It is truly ironic that the Riddler is in this movie, because that is very much A to B to X sort of like riddle answer there.
It's also like one of the other clues was Mona Lisa. So what does Mona Lisa mean? And he goes, Mona Lisa. No, like, and he points to Carol Channing. He goes, no, you're Mona Lisa. Mine. Oh, Darlene, my daughter. She's my Mona Lisa.
I guess.
Wow.
Sure.
Only the mind of Carol Channing can put that one together, I think.
The fact that there's no like discussion, there's no like picture areas. They're like, it's a jackal. It's a jackal. Is it a jackal? They don't do that. They just go, what's Mona Lisa? Oh, it's Darlene. Like they know instantly.
I mean, that's a really funny idea. And someone gives them an indecipherable message, and there's on paper. I don't know why I'm going back to that so often, but on paper, it's funny. This doesn't make any sense. But then like someone like looks at it and like gets it immediately. Yeah, there's some laughs there, but
they do not do it for laughs.
No, they don't really play. Well, again, because it's the hippies and Carol Channing who
is now their queen.
So the hot air balloon and the hippie armada descend on the yacht.
And musical number.
Yeah. There's a musical number.
It's just Jackie Gleason and the professor in the balloon. They rightfully leave the rapist behind in prison because there's no room.
Here's a callback. So at one point after Jackie Gleason's had his LSD trip, the rapist, the serial rapist, he goes, "This is straight up a line for the movie." He looks at them and goes, maybe I should take some of that stuff. It might keep me from raping all the time.
I mean, he's trying to better himself. He's trying to improve.
Probably.
Yeah, so the balloon and the hippies all meet at the yacht at the exact same time. Jackie Gleason gets out of the balloon, and he's angry. The boat staff are there, and all the hippies are there, and he's running around, and he's trying to find God, and he's trying to find his daughter, and Carol Channing will not stop singing. There's nothing you can do that will get this woman to stop singing this song.
Also, instead of finding Darlene or finding God, Carol Channing, while singing, just takes him to another cabin, and then they close the door, and I presume they have sex.
And that is a wrap on those characters. They never come back.
You never see Darlene again. Like,
no.
What happens to
She gets married. She gets married to Stash, and Frankie Avalon gets married to the Mistress.
I don't think she does get married to Stash.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
they get married right after.
Right, they get married because their backs are turned. So I thought, I guess they're just marrying hippies.
It's like a double wedding at the end.
What was that fucking scene where Frankie Avalon goes into her cabin and she's in the shower and he's got a gun drawn and then the gun goes off and then like we assume, did he shoot her?
No.
And then we see them again and she's like, oh, don't kill him, Daddy. He saved my life. Like, from who? Who did he fucking...
So God was finding out that Jackie Gleason was deciding not to assassinate Mickey Rooney.
Mm-hmm.
So he says, oh, well, your daughter's now in danger unless you do it. And then he's like, oh, I got to escape and go save my daughter. So then once he finds out that Jackie Gleason's escaped, he tells Frankie Avalon, okay, you need to go kill Darlene now because Jackie Gleason, Tony has decided not to do it. So you need to go kill Darlene. And I guess this guy's got a soft spot for Darlene.
Yeah.
And then there's a scene, and because everything's being filmed, this is actually one of the few pieces that actually makes a lot of sense in the way it's
Please
filmed.
enlighten me.
Because, like, so we've established that there's security cameras in every room, and then God can just tap into any one of these security cameras at any time and spy on the people.
Yes.
And they had to keep his mistress out of them so that her trick around is just hanging her underwear over the camera so he can't see it. And God's like, I can't see it. Something's wrong with the...
Yeah.
So then Frankie Avalon knows that God is looking into all the rooms. So he gets the gun, he goes into the room, and he knows the camera's there, opens up the door to the bathroom. She's in the shower. Like, you see, he looks at the camera, goes inside, and then closes the bathroom door, and then just fires the gun. And Groucho Marx instantly goes, it's done, because he trusts Frankie Avalon.
Okay.
And then they just hid in the bathroom.
I guess that makes a ton of sense. Finally, something's landing in this fucking movie.
Should we get out of this bathroom? No, Carol Channing will be sitting for hours. We'll be fine.
coming.
We're fine.
Man, that is some fucking, like, prime horror movie shit. There's a moment where...
Look, I'm serious. Just imagine it. It's like a simple flash game. You're going from room to room. You have, like, a light source that doesn't work great and everything. You're trying to find the pieces of the paper or whatever. You turn a corner, and there's Carol Channing going, Skidoo! Skidoo! And I would shit my pants, man.
Yeah.
It would be the scariest thing to see in that moment.
I'm cowering in a closet, and, like, from a distance, I can hear, Skidoo, Skidoo.
Like, she's just getting closer and closer.
You hear it right outside the door, Skidoo, and then you just hear, like, walk away, and you're like... And then it's right behind you the whole time.
Skidoo!
So, Tony and Flo, which is the actual name of Carol Channing's character, are, I guess, having sex on this boat. Darlene is married. The professor has found some monk's robes and is escaping with God on a boat that's already... It's one of the hippies' boats, because it's already been, like...
Yeah.
They work fast, because they found this boat, this, like, real nice schooner, and they just
they gotta personalize it.
already with love before they went out.
Yeah, one is presuming that they're just stealing boats at this point, and then,
Well, they don't have possessions, they're hippies.
Yes.
And then they're just sailing off. The God just escapes on this boat. I guess they're going back alone. And they smoke a doobie on the boat.
Yeah, and then you would assume the movie is over, but then the best part of the movie happens, which
The most creative part of the movie
Yes.
happens.
I've never seen anything like that.
no,
this is
truly,
great.
truly, you have whatever else you think about this movie, you truly have to admit this is the only time someone has had the audacity to sing the entire ending credits. Every person, well, okay, not every person, because, like, the proof is in the pudding right there in the fact that he doesn't sing the names of everyone who played a hippie in this. Everyone who played a hippie is essentially uncredited, because there are just a ton of them. But yeah, it's Harry Nilsson, and he's singing the song, but he goes into all of the crew. He goes into the weird, I guess, trademark.
He sings the copyright.
He sings the copyright at the end. That's the best part of it.
Production managers Kenny DeLand and Howard Joslin. Assistant directors Eric von Stroheim Jr., Ollie Jones, Al Murphy, and Stephen North. Production accountant Herman Darcy. Production secretary Joyce Lilly. Costume coordinator Hope Bryce. Makeup Webb Overlander. Hairdressing Vivian Thompson. Wardrobe Ted Parvin, Phyllis Garr, George Thompson, and John Perry. Visual consultant and titles by Sandy DeVore. And what's more, they were executed by Pacific. How's your popcorn? Copyright MCMLXBIII by Sigma Productions Incorporated. Your seat's on fire. The story, the characters, and the incidents are fictitious. Ho-hum, etc., etc.
And it forces you to sit through. I mean, like, it would be a lot easier to sit through some of those Marvel movies if someone was just, like, going through, like, all the SFX fucking artists.
Can you imagine if someone actually said, how long would that song be?
It would be the length of an entire movie.
Yeah, that's an entire album
It would be
cover.
impossible.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, hats off to them for actually pulling that through. It works. It oddly works.
It oddly works, but also keep in mind, they're not making a song, like a clever song. And
No.
It's just them sing-songing a tune
Yeah.
and just saying people's names. It doesn't rhyme. It barely follows a melody.
No, but it's very fun, and it's also the best song in the movie.
Yeah, it's one of the only songs whose lyrics I actually understand.
Well, I mean, it's between that, the garbage song, and Skidoo. Like, that's not exactly stiff competition.
And Skidoo is not a terrible song, but it is nightmare.
It's terrifying.
It's terrifying. Yes, I will probably hear that as I die. Yes, it'll be like so. That's this fucking movie. Is there anything we missed?
Two things I wanted to bring up. One, that hot air balloon was pretty impressive.
Somebody made that.
That's a practical effect.
That's a real
that's
high
an actual
flying
thing that they did.
That's a high flying hot air balloon, and like as ramshackle as it looks, it fucking operates.
They probably didn't literally put Jackie Gleason and Austin Pendleton in it, but someone was in that. You could see that there was someone in that as it was flying around. And like goes over the Golden Gate Bridge or
San Francisco. Yeah.
I also want to mention again, Cesar Romero just teleports to this boat.
Yeah, he's just on the yacht at the end of it. Yeah, he's just there.
He knew that this was happening. He showed up.
Henchy, what are you doing here? I came with the hippies.
Also, here's the one of my favorite part of the movie. So the assassination attempt on Mickey Rooney's character doesn't happen.
Right.
And the way this whole conflict is resolved is that the switchboard operators who are currently on LSD accidentally connect a call between God and Ricky Mooney, and they go, "Hello? Hello? Who's this? Well, who's this? How's your health? Fine, thank you. All right," and that's it.
Yeah. Presumably he like gives over the state's evidence.
Yeah, and then then God goes to prison. And
Except God escaped at the end, so
Yeah.
I guess he's on the lam now, and for a self-confessed germaphobe, I get he was weirdly cool with sharing a joint with a smelly hippie that he just met.
The other thing I wanted to mention is during the whole prison escape sequence, one of the guards hallucinates seeing what he claims are the Green Bay Packers. And what it actually was a bunch of naked men in football helmets.
Who were played by a minor league football team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's about it.
Just a bunch of nude men dressed as football players as part of a bit.
Brett, was there anything that we didn't go over?
Those are all the best parts. Those are all the parts worth talking about. I just think again, I'm just feeling like it's two different movies because the hippies are doing their thing. There's this whole prison movie, which could make up for a really interesting movie, and they just don't do it.
The last little bit of trivia that I want to read, because I just kind of find like this is like just like a funny story. You know, it's Otto Preminger clearly knew a lot of famous people. He originally wanted to get Bob Dylan to do the music for this, and he invited Bob and his family and his entourage over to Otto Preminger's house to watch a screening of the movie. And after the screening was over, everyone clearly hated the movie, but Bob Dylan requested a second screening, but only under the condition that he and his wife could watch it alone in Otto Preminger's house, which is a very odd request, but for some reason Preminger said, yeah, sure, you can do that. It turned out later that Bob and his wife did not watch the movie a second time. They just really liked Otto Preminger's house and they wanted to take notes for their own interior decorating.
That's pretty good.
And on that note, would either of you recommend Skidoo?
Okay, look, it's a movie of its time, and it's a weird trip. It's not boring. I don't think
It's not boring, but
at
it
all.
is meandering.
It is meandering because it's a lot of movies from that era are kind of like there's a lot of long extended sequences that don't seem to match. There's like entire I remember when I first saw Psycho, I was really confused because the first half of the movie is not. I thought the first half of the movie like there's a whole that plot where she's like robbing money. It's like I had no idea this was in this movie. It's so weird, and it takes like a good 30 minutes of the movie for that to happen. A lot of 60 movies are like that. That there's just this long going way to tell this story. Very long-winded.
So is that a recommendation?
I mean, it's a weird trip. It's terrifying. It's genuinely funny in some circumstances. Most of them are completely unintentional.
Yes.
I don't know if this is a comedy or not. It's not one of those movies. It's not a badly put together movie. It's shot competently.
I think the intention was to make a comedy.
Yeah, but like it's not. It's that.
But it's from a director who didn't really do comedies.
So I guess I'm being very long-winded. That's just like some of the movie can be sometimes. But yeah, I'd actually recommend that you've got like an hour and 40 minutes to kill it just for the ending credits alone. I think I think Jackie Gleason has moments in it where he's really, really good. I actually really like the professor as a character. That's one of the reasons I keep talking about him. Even parts with the hippies can be very charming because it's not outright saying that their hippies are stupid and shitty, and the hippies do win in the end.
No, that like the hippies were, like, I imagine, the demographic, and I suppose fans of all these, you know, famous comedic actors.
Yeah. So yeah, I give it a recommend. If you're a fan of the Honeymooners and and are for some reason not old enough to be dead, then yeah,
Or 60s Batman, or like any of the other things.
give this movie a try.
I don't know. I think this is a little too surreal in places, especially with the LSD. I think if this had a little bit more focus in either the main hippie storyline or the Jackie Gleason prison storyline, either one of those, that has to take fucking priority over everything else. This swerves way too much and way too little time to either of the main plots. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, it's a recommend for me, dog. I think you basically just need to see this for the end credits and for Carol Channing. I think those 2 elements alone are definitely worth your time. But also, I was, even though it made me uncomfortable as fuck, I was really quite taken aback with Jackie Gleason's drug trip sequence. I think the whole thing was put together really well. I think it's a really effective piece of cinema because it definitely elicted an emotion in me, and it made me feel things, and it just put a lot of nightmare imagery in my head. Like, we completely forgot to mention at one point, Groucho Marx's head is implanted onto a literal turning screw at one point, and it's just bouncing around, and then it goes down a sink, and he's got a cigar in his mouth, and why was that there? No one knows. There's no reason for any of it.
The answer is lost to time.
Yeah. But, Brett, thanks for coming back, man. It's been great to finally have you back here.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me back.
You got any plugs you want to do or anything you want to recommend people check out?
I did see The Green Knight the other night.
Oh, yeah.
And I find it actually is one of the better adaptations of, an old English poem that's basically trying to amalgamate Christian, Roman, and pagan mythology all into one easily digestible chunk. And
Name 3 other movies.
Beowulf is one of them.
There's one,
The Robert Zemeckis one. There's a lot of King Arthur, like old, even German-made King Arthur stories that are just like they're keep that medieval aesthetic, but losing the poetry of the way it's like. I don't know if it's an interesting movie to see. It's beautiful. It looks amazing. It's hard to follow. At some point, it's a movie that might be better if you're on LSD, but it also might be a lot worse if you're on LSD.
I smoked a joint before I went to see it, and I was fairly lost. So I might want to give that one another watch at another point.
Yeah, but I think in terms of like it's a risk. It's a risk of a movie. You took a property.
Definitely,
Taking a property that very few people know about, but is slightly connected to something that everybody knows about. Dev Patel is really good in it, and it is a strange movie, and if you let it be strange and appreciate it for the fact that it is strange, I think it's well worth viewing.
Cool, great. Also mentioned here that at some point in the near future, you're going to be on an episode of Batwoman. That's pretty cool.
I'm pretty sure you don't see my face at all in it, but it's good. Part of a montage sequence. I was actually the first thing shot for season 3.
Hey, all right.
What's that?
Oh, so that's going to be the season premiere?
Yeah.
Or they just shot out of order?
My scene is the first thing that happens in season 3.
Hey, there you go. When season 3 of Batwoman shows up, just listen for this guy's voice, and we'll post some photos of the back of his head, so you can recognize that. Jameson, you want to recommend anything for the folks at home?
I haven't really had the time to get into stuff. Too focused on crunch time at the moment, so yeah, really nothing.
All right, cool.
Just
what
being
about
honest.
this week? I got really into the Australian comedy trio Auntie Donna. They have a very laboriously titled show on Netflix called Auntie Donna's Big Old House of Fun. But there's a whole bunch of skits from that I really enjoy. If you just want to watch one of them, I would recommend YouTubing the Woogie Boogie Moogie. Or Woogie Moogie Boogie. I don't know. It's like 3 minutes of just this utterly absurd song with a puppet that doesn't make any sense. And like it took me like 3 watches through it before I realized, oh, this is completely improvised. They're just making up a song with a puppet as they're going along. And I've also been watching a lot of this new cartoon called Jellystone, which is a remake of the classic Hanna-Barbera characters, but they're just kind of like living in a town together, and they have like a bunch of odd jobs. It's very similar to that Looney Tunes show that they tried to do a while back where they're like living in the suburbs, but it's kind of more effective than that because it's more surreal and it's more funny. Gender bending a lot of the characters, which I actually think works in this case because it's the fucking Hanna-Barbera character. Who gives a shit about fucking Jabberjaw? Sure, make her a woman now. It truly doesn't matter.
Oh,
I don't know.
sacrilege.
Sacrilege! You just know that there's gonna be these fucking assholes out here. Is all like, I can't believe they made half of the women. Is all like, you haven't fucking watched any of this shit in decades. Shut up. Anyway, that show's really cute. I would recommend that. And that was Skidoo from 1968, directed by Otto Preminger. If you enjoyed this episode of The Fuck Is This, please give us a follow. We have a Facebook page, The Fuck Is This. We have an Instagram, what is that, a page? It's also a page, right?
An Instagram
account. And account, yeah. It's at the F_is_this. We release new episodes on our Twitter account at the T_K is this. I think it's fine. All these links are in here, so you can just click on them. I don't need to say any of this shit. If you were watching this on YouTube, we also have a Spotify version. If you're listening to this on Spotify, we also have a YouTube version. Jameson, take us out with a quote from the movie.
Souffle. Souffle.
No context. I'm not even putting the clip from the movie in here. We're just going to leave it at that.
Hey, maybe if I take some of that stuff, I wouldn't have to rape anybody anymore.